So every time we do a classic car themed video, we get a lot of hits. And most of the videos that we do are pointing out cars that have already been purchased and they've got their issues, and we're going through them. But we figured for a change of pace, what we'll do is we're going to show you how I assess a car out in the field. You know, and I've done this like countless thousands of times for myself and for other people and whatnot. So it's like it's a second nature to me. And this is my buddy Benny Wilson.
Hey, how you doing?
We've been trading back and forth for a long time. He owns this car, and for the purposes of this video, we're going to pretend that we don't even know each other. Now, for the record, he and I have been dealing back and forth for years now, and the level of trust is such that if I was actually in the market for this car, I wouldn't even ask him questions about it. I would say, just drop it off, tell me what your bottom line is, and give him the money. This is, you know, but that's not what we're doing here. Here, I'm going to go over this car as if I don't know him, and I've never seen it, and I actually never have seen this car before. This is the first time I met it. He messaged me a few days ago asking me if I knew anybody looking for a good daily driver classic. So he says it's good. I know it's good, but we're going to go over it anyway and show you guys how I go about all of this. Right? You're probably going to want to watch this video a few times if you're doing this yourself, because I'm going to go fast, and I'm going to talk to the seller the same way. Talk to me the same way we talk to any seller. When I go over a car, I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here to socialize. I'm here to look at a car, cut a deal, get the best deal I possibly can, and move on. As I go through the car, I generally talk to the seller of the car. I want him there. I want him to know what I'm seeing as I'm seeing, so we don't really have to talk about it afterwards. He already knows, you know, this guy likes the car, he doesn't like the car, you know, he's seen this, he's seen that. So it just keeps the negotiation fair and honest and open. And by the same token, you know, I may pick the car apart, but if I see something I like on the car, I'm fair about that also, and I'll say, you know, this is really nice, this catches my attention. So with that, let's look at the car. Look at the car. There you go. All right. So Benny, how long have you had this thing?
I've had the car about 6 months.
You driving it all, or just
I've driven it around the neighborhood, put some gas in it, and stuff like that.
So the first thing I do, I walk up on the car, and the very first thing I'll do is see if the engine's warm. If the engine is warm, I'll ask him, how's this thing start from cold?
Starts great. Bump it a couple times.
No issues? Okay. The reason for that is because a lot of cars have a cold start problem, or they'll make noise when they first start. They'll make a bad lifter noise, or they'll make a piston noise. And so a lot of times, if you pull up on a car and the thing's already warmed up, that issue is going to be hidden from you. So that's the very first thing that I do. Then I give the car a quick look over, right? So I'm making an assessment on this car. Now this thing is obviously in the hands of somebody who wanted to turn it into something it's not. You know, it's a four-door, it's a typical grandma car. It's a perfect daily driver type of car. The wheels don't match the style of the car, you know, but that's all subjective. Looking at the interior real quick, it's got a boy racer, you know, speed racer steering wheel on it. It's got a floor shifter. These things don't really fit the character of the car. And so in my mind, they're liabilities, and we're going to have to, you know, undo what has been done here. But again, see, that's your taste, okay? If you like this stuff, if these are the modifications you would make to the car yourself, then they're bonuses. You know, you go for it. The body is very straight. Now here's something that I actually like to see. I know this is going to sound crazy, right? I like this. The fact that I can actually see the body damage on this car. This isn't on this car. Now, at some point it did have body work done to it, probably back in the 70s. It's got just a skim coat of Bondo over it. But what I do like about this is that the inner part of the dog leg of the rear quarter is intact, the drop-off section. So I know that, you know, if I'm going to repair this, it's a fairly simple, straightforward repair. When you come up on a car like this and everything is perfect on it, you know, there's probably going to be issues. I'd rather see the issues right up front. the rear quarter behind the wheel is for the most part where you're going to find this type of damage, and also the dog leg of the front fender. And this is because over the years, cars are going down the road, stuff is being kicked up and it gathers up all in here. And the dog legs on this car are really solid. There's a lot of crap in there. And Betty clearly didn't doctor the car up before we got here. So, you know, this is an honest car. This is what I like. But the dog leg is solid. There's no blistering. I didn't bring a magnet. You can bring a magnet and check for Bondo. I didn't do it this time, but you know, it's not a bad idea. Also, what I like about this is that all of the original trim is still on the car. It's not as clean as it could be, but it's there. You know, and what's nice about it is, even though it's messed up, you can kind of take your time and find the nicer pieces to put in there. It won't stick in your head that, oh, it's missing this piece of trim and that piece of trim. All of it is here and intact, and that's a big bonus point as far as I'm concerned. Other things I like about this car: the grill. That's a hard to find grill. It's in really nice shape. It's got no broken, you know, posts or anything like that. It's straight. These things are hard to find like this. This is a top dollar grill. This adds a lot of value to the car. The same thing with the bumper. The chrome on the bumper is really nice. It's not, you know, this is a good piece. Let's go around and look at the back of the car. Chrome on the mirror is nice, you know. Even this tail panel, we got a little dent on the tail panel here, but I'll tell you the truth, this is so much nicer than average, and this could be worked out. Not too difficult. And again, you know, it's the kind of thing where you can drive the car and then find the piece that you want and add it as you go. Tail lights are in nice shape. They got the typical, you know, the checking on the reverse lens here. That side is beautiful. Back bumper is straight, good chrome. You know, and again, assessing this car as a daily driver type of car. Not as a show car, not as a numbers matching restoration, but a daily driver classic. Something you get in, turn the key, take to work, you know, that kind of car. So now we got to look at the important stuff. So far my impression of the car is it's a pretty cool car. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Alright. Now we don't have a lift. And 99% of the time when you're looking at one of these cars, you're not going to have a lift either. So what I do is go for the most likely trouble areas first. I can see from what I could visually inspect of the underneath of this car, it hasn't been doctored. This is in its natural state. And there's no fresh undercoating under here. There's no paint under here. Nothing has been done. So I have confidence that whatever I'm going to see under here is honest. So feeling along the frame rails, on the inner part of the frame rails, I'm feeling for any type of scaly rust. I'm squeezing the frame rail, looking for any type of soft parts. As I squeeze, I'm listening for crunching. I'm trying to drive my fingers into it, and nothing. It's all good. Up here. Now also I'm going to look. This is a Chrysler product, so one of the areas that's prone to trouble is where the K-frame mounts, and I can see that area. You can't see it, but I can see it. And I don't see any cracking or kinking or distortion. So front frame rail looks good. I come back a little bit and I'm going to feel along the floor pan of the car, and I'm feeling a solid floor pan. There's no repairs. The car was undercoated and I can feel the original undercoating kind of like peeling off in places, but the metal itself seems solid. Now, given the fact that the frame rails are in nice shape and what I can feel of the floor is in nice shape, I'm going to let it pass if it's got, like, you know, small holes like this, or, you know, rust areas, you know, a simple patch type of thing. But I know that this car is going to be overall solid on the floor pans. Now we do the same thing at the back frame rail. And the back is virgin. The rear floor pan is beautiful. I can look across and see the other side. The other side has a dent in it, but doesn't look like anything major. I can see the torsion bar cross member from here. The torsion bar cross member is solid. I can see the exhaust. The exhaust is new. I can see the rear end. I don't see any wet marks at the pinion seal or anything like that. I don't see any oil around it. So I'm happy with that. Come around to the back side of the frame rail. And again, I'm seeing solid car. I'm seeing something that's never been doctored here. The floor pan, the trunk pan drop-offs are good. We're going to look at the trunk pan itself in a little bit when we open the trunk. It's got a new gas tank. It's got some low level shocks. Bouncing the car around. I don't hear any squeaks. I don't hear any weirdnesses or anything like that. I kind of like it. It's got some crazy Speed Racer exhaust tips on it. That's great. Many of the exhaust tips on this thing are bigger than the engine itself. Well, all right. Pop the trunk on this thing.
Now, we might have to edit this part. We might have to take a little bit of stuff out.
Okay, why?
No, leave it in there. It shows the capacity of the trunk.
Yeah. All right, there's a lot of crap in the trunk. All right, so here we're finding our first issues with this car. And this is so typical of one of these things. They almost all rust like this. It is going to need a trunk pan. There really isn't any solid metal to patch to. So, you know, and again, this is a daily driver type of car, so, you know, you don't have to go nuts and replace full pans and do all of that. Take a metal that's you know, destroyed or, you know, it's gone, cut it out, weld in some you know, patch sections, and you're in good shape. The drop-offs are in nice shape. The drop-offs are, oh no, this drop-off here has some issues to it. But again, no big deal. We're talking about a driver quality car, something that you're going to hit the road and commute with. This car has all the typical Chrysler trunk rust at the back of the wheel houses, at the bottom here. And again, this generally happens because as the car goes through life, the tire is always kicking dirt and everything up into this area, so it starts to rot through. So the trunk is really the only thing I've seen so far on this car that makes me say, okay, we need some work here. Bottom of the trunk lid is in nice shape. I don't see any rust holes or anything like that. This is a common thing that you're going to find. But the trunk lid itself is in beautiful shape. This is a common rust area on these cars. And here we see where we've got some rust here. That's rotted through. So again, this is something where it's not that big of a deal. The trim is in nice shape, the back glass is in nice shape, but if you're going to actually use this car, this is something that you're going to have to take into consideration. You know, you can't just fill that with JB Weld and call it a day. You actually have to weld a piece into that. But it's not something that's going to inhibit you from actually going out and using the car. So I would say that's a problem. The trunk lid, back window glass is a problem. Here again, on the quarters, I'm seeing blistering old Bondo. I know that there's damage under here, but if I feel inside, the trunk drop-off is in nice shape. Back under the car here, looking at this frame rail. This frame rail here has a really severe dent in it. Car was bottomed out hard, but I'm also not seeing any damage around it. And the leaf spring mount looks like this. Yeah, the leaf spring mount is straight. The floor in front of it is straight. The rocker, which on a unibody car is part of the frame, this is all straight and actually very solid. This is a very important area to look at on these cars, especially of Chrysler products. Now, generally on a four-door like this or a post car, this area here will be solid. On your hard tops, like your Chargers and whatnot that have the roll-down back windows, that's where you start having rot problems in here, because over time, dirt, leaves, gunk, and everything will fill into this area right here on those cars and gather along the top of the rocker, and that's where you find rot on those cars. But this thing here is like dead nut straight. The whole rocker is beautiful. Take another look at the front frame wheel. On this side, it's straight. Firewall here is good, solid. Okay, everything I'm seeing structurally on this car is in exceptionally nice shape. And ultimately, that's what's really important. Cosmetics you can always work with. Okay, what I am seeing here is the suspension is bottomed out on this car. It's riding right on the bump stop. So basically there's no downward movement before it hits the bump stop. The front end on this car was lowered probably for appearance's sake, you know, to give it that racer kind of look, you know. And I could see that the torsion bar adjusting bolt is backed all the way out. So the first thing I would do with this car, if I was to buy this myself, would be to adjust the torsion bar and get the car to its proper ride height, which would be right about there. K-frame is straight, no dings or dents or anything like that. Core support is straight. Lower control arm, or the strut rod bushings, they're beautiful, nice condition. What I could see from the ball joints, rubber is solid top and bottom. And I'm bouncing the front of the car. I'm not hearing any noises or any weirdnesses. I like this car so far, Benny.
Yeah, it's a pretty great car, man.
All right. Get a look under the hood. So again, we talked about the engine being warm when you pull up on it. Now is the time you actually want to start this thing. Penny, you want to fire this thing up?
Yeah.
Wow, rolling coal. Yeah. So now's the time you want to start this thing up. And you want to let it just sit and idle while you look at everything else. Why do you want to let it sit and idle? Because if it's going to leak something, if it's going to get hot, if it's going to do anything weird, you know, now's when you'll get it. So the motor runs with a little bit of a miss, but I don't hear any lifting noises, I don't hear any bottom end noises. I'm not seeing a lot of smoke or anything like that. It looks like this thing maybe just needs a tune-up, maybe just a carb adjustment. Now, this engine looks to be completely stock. Is it 318 or 273? 318. So here's what I look for when I'm looking at a car like this. Certain aftermarket accessories, fine, right? Headers, intake manifold, carburetor, cam, you know. But you know, when you start getting into like lopey engines where it's got a cam, you want to make sure it has converter and gears to match. Otherwise, it's got a real slug. The car won't run right. But certain items like that are all completely acceptable. Dress-up items, you know, that's all for tape. Got aftermarket valve covers, air cleaner, whatever. That's fine. Aftermarket stuff that I stay away from. No way. Very common on these cars. Aftermarket pulley setups, like the billet ones. Why do I stay away from that? Because if I've had this car, drive it for a year or two, and the bearing goes out on this pump, or you know, this bracket cracks or whatever, where do I get it from? The company goes out of business, I gotta wipe everything off the front of my engine and put it all back together again with different parts. So I stay away from stuff like that. Aftermarket wiring. I don't want any aftermarket wiring on the car. That doesn't include things that are added on accessory-wise, you know, somebody they add an MSD or whatever it is, that's fine. But when you see the aftermarket harnesses, you don't know how it was put in the car. You don't know if the job was done right from the headlights to the taillights, what's going to bite you in the ass down the road. Looking at this car, I'm seeing all of the original harnesses. I'm not seeing any patches or splices. I see something that was added on here. But everything else that I'm looking at is nice and straight. Nothing's ever been burned up. We're in good shape there. And the motor's starting to get some temperature in it, and it still sounds good. It's running off and it sounds good. So everything under the hood seems to be in order. Now we're going to look up underneath the dashboard. And what I'm looking for here is jumper wires, patches. I'm looking for anything that's like, it looks like it was cobbled together, or, roadside fixes, just get this thing together quick and go. And I'm not seeing anything like that. Everything I'm looking at up underneath the dashboard is factory original. All of the wiring is right. It's all intact. It looks good. This was an AC car. All of the AC parts are intact underneath the dash here, and it looks like they're all intact under the hood except for the AC compressor itself. So I'm gonna call that a win. All of the controls are intact. The dashboard hasn't been cut up. It's got the original gauge cluster in it. It's got the original radio in it. All right, that's not a big deal. Windshield isn't cracked or anything. So I'm liking what I see there so far. The seat looks like it's in good shape. And when I say the seat looks like it's in good shape, it's not buried in over here. It looks like it's holding its shape. When you look at one of these cars and you've got that divot right here, it means the springs or the framework underneath is shot. So this seat looks like it's in good shape. Motor responds well. It sounds good. Time to take this thing for a test ride, yeah? Now before we go for a test ride, you want to give the front tires a quick looking over. Because your wear pattern here, now these tires are completely shot. They're dry rotted. They're literally ready to come apart. You don't want to take this thing on the highway like this. But that's not what I'm looking for, right? I'm going to assume it's going to need tires. But what I'm looking for is wear pattern here, where the inside or the outside of the tire is worn more than the other. So we know that the car is, right now we know this car is tracking straight. The front suspension is within spec. That's not to say it may not need a ball joint or anything like that, but the basic alignment and the basic structure of the front end is where we need it to be. So, but yeah, that's definitely going to need some tires. Now, before we go for a ride on this, Benny, shut the car off real quick. Now the motor's up to temperature now, right? The radiator hose is warm, which means that the thermostat has opened and it started to circulate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to feel along the radiator here, and I'm going to see if I find any cold spots. I don't see any signs of leakage. I do see some fin damage, but the tubes themselves look like they're in good shape. The radiator feels even all the way across. One of the telltale signs that there's an issue with a radiator is right here. Come around this side and look at this right here. Okay, when these radiators go bad, when the tubes start to clog up, you'll see this rot here at the fins. You'll see that discoloration, that copper. I don't exactly know why that happens, but that happens, and that's a sign that this section of the radiator right here is staying cold. It's not getting hot. But like I said, the rest of it seems like it's in good shape. This isn't the original radiator for the car. Okay, first inspection, it looks like it's not. You can't bolt it in, but actually looking at it closer, the bolt is here. But whoever put this radiator in missed getting this this piece on there, so that's no big deal. Let's go for a ride. Here, you jump in the back seat.
Matt, go to the other side.
Hang on. See, this is how you discover stuff on cars. Okay, here we go. That door probably hasn't been opened since, whenever. Okay. brake pedal feels good and solid. I did notice that this car has factory discs.
Actually, it's been converted. The guy I got it from converted it to disc.
Okay.
A couple years back.
Okay. But the pedal feels good. Tranny goes right into gear. That's a big deal. Nice shift. The car takes a little bit of pedal effort to get it stopped, but that's because they converted it to disc, but it's manual, non-power drum. So here I would want to just make sure that it upshifts or holds its gears where it's supposed to. There's first, second, and there's high gear. Transmission is like right on the money. Like you just couldn't ask for a nicer shift and tranny than that. Alternator gauge is riding where it's supposed to. It's charging. I'm throwing the headlights on, and it's still charging. That's all good. I'll watch the gauge when we come to a stop here. And it's actually staying in the charge zone. Usually on these cars, when you come down to an idle and the headlights on, it'll discharge slightly. So the charging system in this car is right on the money. Okay, this car drives exceptionally nice. And I'm taking into account the poorly adjusted torsion bars in the front. Now normally I take a car like this out a little bit on the open road and beat it up a little bit, but those tires do not look like they're going to be happy. So I can feel everything I need to feel right now. I'm not hearing any noises from the rear end. No wheel bearing, rumble, no gear whine, no clunking. This car hits the road like new. So I'm looking for a daily driver. I just found my daily driver. Go lay into the brakes. Nice. There's no wander to the steering wheel. You touch it, it moves. Can we pull up in this driveway here?
Yep, that'd be fine.
Okay. That's about all I really need to, I mean, obviously if you can run the car out on the road, go ahead and do it. And then just check the accessories real quick. All right, now we see that our wipers aren't working.
They did move. I think they're stuck to the windshield.
Yeah, why don't you give them a push? Sometimes, it's normal for these cars when accessories aren't used for decades at a time. There they go. All right, let's not push our luck with it because we don't have any blades on this. We don't want to scratch up the windshield any more than is necessary. So I'm gonna say that those work. We're gonna just need to mess with it a little bit. The A-pillar moldings are in nice shape. All of it, this car is actually, it has a lot of potential. Me myself, I would take off all of these accessories and just return it to like basic. Put the shifter back on the column, put a stock size steering wheel back on it. But I mean, again, that's to your taste. Anyway. So Benny, it appears that you have a relatively fine automobile here.
It's fairly nice car for what it is. It's set for a long time. I don't have room in my budget or my garage for it, so I got to let it ride to a better home.
Well, it's what you represented to me. You know,
Yeah.
you said it's a good daily driver. You know, and the price that you're asking. We're not going to talk about the price that you're asking. I think the price that you're asking is fair, especially given the market.
Yeah.
And the parts value of a car like this, which is something a lot of people don't take into consideration. Yeah, sure.
This car has all the potential. If you wanted to make a daily driver, it's an awesome car for that. You just proved that. But on the other side, the flip side of the coin, if someone wanted to hot rod this car, it's got a 727. It's got an 8 3/4. All the original wiring. You don't have to go searching for all the trim and all that. It'd go whatever direction you wanted to take it. I think it would make an awesome daily driver.
Exactly. I mean, stuff like this grill, you know, the filler panel, the bumper, this trim. This is all. I mean, I'm looking at just the front of the car right here. I'm looking at probably $1,000 to $1,200 worth of, you know, stuff that's in really good condition on this car. Let me shut these lights before it goes the battery. So, what I did here is pretty much exactly what I would do in any situation, and I went over the car and talked out loud about what I was finding, the same way that I would if Benny was a stranger and not a buddy. And the way I would wrap this up at this point, because I do like the car and I would buy the car if I was in the market for it, is I would ask him, you know, the last question, right? And it's the only question that really counts in the end. You don't have to answer this,
Right.
but the question is, all right, Benny, I love the car, cash in my pocket, what is your absolute bottom dollar? What are you going to take for this thing? Don't say anything. Let the next guy who actually comes to buy the car, you know, you work that out with him. So, guys, I hope you got something out of this. Benny, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Tony.
And that's it. I'll see you tomorrow.